to the planet. Welcome to existence. Everyone's here. Everyone's here. Everybody's watching you now. Everybody waits for you now. What happens next? What happens next? I dare you to move. I dare you to move. I dare you to lift yourself up off the floor. I dare you to move. I dare you to move like today never happened. Today never happened before. Welcome to the fallout. Welcome to resistance. The tension is here. The tension is here. Between who you are and who you could be. Between how it is and how it should be. I dare you to move. I dare you to move. I dare you to lift yourself up off the floor. I dare you to move. I dare you to move like today never happened. Today never happened. Maybe redemption has stories to tell. Maybe forgiveness is right where you fell. Where can you run to escape from yourself? Where you gonna go? Salvation is here. I dare you to move. I dare you to move. I dare you to lift yourself up off the floor. I dare you to move. I dare you to move like today never happened. Today never happened. Today never happened. Today never happened
All right. Didn't know you were going to come to church today and sing some Switchfoot, did you? Actually, it's funny. I saw that am I on? Check. I saw that we were actually doing that song, and I'm like, how old is that song? So I have a Snickers bar for whoever can tell me the year that came out. Whoever says it first. 2003. Who said 2003? I did. 2003, that song came out. Well, welcome to K2. My name is Amy King, and I am an original K2er back from Michigan. So I came out from Michigan to help start K2, and I was on staff for a while, and now I lead a citywide ministry called For the Orphan Network, working with churches and caring for vulnerable kids in our city, which you're going to hear a little bit about in just a second. But to start our day, probably a month ago, we started something called 167. And so for those of you who don't know what 167 is, it comes from the fact that there are 168 hours in a week. And as a body, we are only together for one of those hours. So what's going on in our own lives, in the lives of our friends and family members and our community, all those other hours, all those other 167? And when we started K2, one of the things that we said, I remember very early on, was that we wanted to be known as a church without walls, that we wanted to be involved in our community, in the lives of our coworkers, people that we go to school with. And so 167 is a time in our service that we are taking to hear stories of things that God is doing out in our communities. They can be small things and big things and everything in between. But we just wanted to take a moment at the beginning of our service and share some of those. And so we're going to be sharing today, our stories are going to be coming out of Foster Love, which is our ministry here that serves kids in foster care and also the families that are caring for them. And later today, you're going to hear Mike Rutledge. He's going to be talking about compassion. And one of the marks of the early church, he's going to be talking about that early church in Acts. And one of the marks of the early church was that they cared for orphans. If there was a child that was abandoned, somebody in that community scooped that child up and took them into their home. So there was never a child that needed a home. And so we want to be about caring for the kids in our community too, and also the people that are caring for those kids. And so I'm going to bring Barb up, and Barb leads our ministry here. Yeah, you can go ahead and give her some applause. She leads our ministry, which are care communities, and she's going to share some story. Do you want to share what a care community is, or did you want me to? Did you share that? Okay, perfect. Take it away, Barb.
I was blind, but now I see. No blinding light conversion story here, just a gentle turning of my head to stop and look for the ways of God. My name is Barb Thompson, and in looking for God, I saw Foster Love. The Foster Love ministry here at K2 serves foster families so that they can do what they love best and love on kids. God nudged my heart to take a step of faith, and I signed up to bring a meal once a month to a family who took the tremendous leap of faith to taking kids to foster and love. After my training, I didn't hear anything, and I wondered what was going on. So I contacted the Foster Love leader at the time, and she said that there was no one to lead the Foster Love team. Before I could think, the words were out of my mouth, and I said, well, what does it take to be a team leader? She said, 1 hour a week to communicate with the foster family and to communicate with your team. So before I brought my first meal, I was a team leader. And in being a team leader, God showed me so many things. Being new to K2. So at this time, we had just moved to Utah. Being a team leader and in Foster Love gave me friends instantaneously. You'll see them showing up behind me. Our Foster Love team served through COVID, and that was a blessing to me to be able to show God's love during this time and to live outside myself during that time. I got to see a part of Salt Lake City that I'd never seen before, and the family we were serving encouraged me to go to the Capitol and see the cherry blossom trees. If I had not taken that step of faith, I would have not seen the tremendous family that you will soon see, and I would have not seen those gorgeous trees. God had blessed me in that situation. So now So the leaders of Foster Love at the time decided that they were going to become foster parents. And so they stepped off, and there was a new role that needed to be filled. And I looked, and I thought, God, is that for me? And so that became my prayer. Lord, is this me? Ooh, what am I doing wrong? Is this me you want in that role? So as you know, God has this amazing ability of lining things up so that you cannot say no. You know that's the path he's put you on. And so today I get to be the team leader for Foster Love here at K2. Woo-hoo. Thank you. And thank you to my volunteers out there. So you'll see more photos of more volunteers, and these people have taken the step of faith to serve on this team, and they've stepped out from their busy lives to bring a meal and show God's love in this way to the families that we serve. They also agree to pray for these families, to pray for the foster kids, and to pray for their biological parents. So I would like to invite you to consider joining us in Foster Love. Is God putting a nudge in your heart to serve through the Foster Love community? We have 4 ways today that you can join us. The first being, if God is totally speaking to you and you know this is a path you're on, we have a sign-up table right outside the front doors, and please come and speak to us. We're also going to have a very brief introduction meeting where you can ask questions. I'll have a little bit more information for you. That's just down the hall if you'd like to join us. Our third way is if you'd like to do a drive-by, and a drive-by here is that you could ride along with one of our volunteers to bring a meal to a foster family and get to experience the blessings that we get to experience. Lastly, if you just feel like you just want to toe in the water, we're going to have a list that you can take on the way out. There will be some volunteers that can hand that to you. And this is a list of items that teens that are going into foster care would need. And you could just buy some of the items or all the items and bring it back to church, and we'll collect it and bring it to Utah Foster Care. I want to let you know that I've been praying for you all this week, and thank you for the chance to share my story.
Thanks, Barb. Care communities are amazing. It's a community of people that come around a family that's fostering, and statistically, half of all foster parents quit after 1 year because it's so difficult. But we have found that when they have a care community, the retention rate is 90%. So if you've always been interested in foster care, but you don't feel like you can bring a kid out to your home, this is an amazing way to serve. So definitely be thinking about those. Another part of Foster Love is something called Care Portal. And Care Portal is being used by about 10 churches in the Valley. And what it is it's an online system where caseworkers who work for the Department of Child and Family Services can enter in needs that the families that they serve have. Some of these are families that are fostering and adopting, but a lot and a majority are families that are just struggling to stay together. And maybe the kids are sleeping on the floor and they don't have a bed, or they're riding in a car and they don't have a car seat. And then a lot of them, also the families that we serve, are families where the kids have been removed, but mom and dad have done the work to get the kiddos back, and so the kids are going to be reunited, but they have certain things that they need to have for those kiddos to come back home. And so they enter in those needs, and then they go out to all the churches, and people like you sign up to say, hey, I'm willing to get that email. And possibly maybe you have that need, maybe you don't, and you'll go and find it either new or all the items can be used. So I have found a lot of stuff on Facebook Marketplace. Dressers are a big one for $25. So it's just it's a way to take something tangible to a family that's struggling or coming back together, and probably still struggling in a lot of ways. And a lot of times, I've done a lot of deliveries. A lot of times it's just a one-time thing. You make the delivery and you meet the family, and you let them know if they ever need anything to let you know, but you don't hear back. But I've had the awesome privilege for the last 3 years. An email went out that somebody needed a bed, a queen-size bed. And I didn't have one, but I knew I knew I could find one. And so I took the request and made this delivery. And I've just had an amazing relationship the past 3 years with this sweet mama. And so to share that story, we're going to do it by video.
A little bit about my life growing up. I was kind of a rebel. My mom was very dominant. So I started acting out at about 14, started doing drugs at 16, got pregnant at 17, had a baby by pretty much 18. I got clean, graduated high school, and then my son was about 6 months old and I relapsed again. And then it was just an ongoing battle from there. My middle son was removed when he was 4. And then I was sober for right after I had Abby in 2015. I was sober for quite some time. And then I lost my parents. I ended up relapsing. Abby was probably 2 or 3. That was when she got taken from me. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever had to go through, even harder than both my parents dying. That type of heartache is nothing I would ever want anyone to go through. At first it seems impossible to drug test however many times you're required, to go to treatment and hold a job at the same time. And trying, especially without a car, that was fun. I had to take the bus down for visits. You only get like an hour visit once a week. And I feel like that was the hardest thing I ever had to go through, was the 1 hour visits. In order for a home trial placement to even be considered, you have to have a job and income, but you also have to have a separate place for sleeping. So in order for Abby to come home, I would have to provide a bed for myself and then a separate bed for her. I had a separate bed for her, just not for myself. I was already, getting back up on my feet, let alone having extra money after rent and food to be able to go and buy pretty much all the things that I needed for her to come home. So I reached out to my DCFS caseworker, and she reached out to, I didn't know who it was at the time, but she reached out to Amy, and that is how I got a bed, and then it was set in stone for her to come home. I felt like it was one less stress, multiple stresses lifted off my shoulder.
So my name is Abby and I am 7.
When Abby came home, we didn't have a kitchen table. And I mean, we made fun out of it, but we had to eat on the kitchen floor, and she had to paint on the kitchen floor.
It felt really nice for someone to bring us a table and like a bed.
When we got that kitchen table, she was at it every day, whether it was doing homework or meals.
It was really exciting because I wanted to paint.
I think that table was one of the best things. When Abby came home, it was actually 3 years ago that I got the bed, and ever since then, a relationship has been formed. And I feel like sometimes I'm stressing about how I'm gonna get my kids clothes, and Amy is there. Like, to have someone just be willing to give and want nothing in return, that's a rarity in my life. And I don't have to worry about feeling like a crappy parent, because I know there's help out there.
So that's just a little look at some of the people that we serve through Care Portal. And again, the only ask is that, would you be willing to receive an email when there's a need? And so if you say, yes, I would love to do that, you can sign up out in the lobby. And again, maybe it'll just be a one-off and you'll meet, someone once, but then maybe also there'll be an opportunity to continue with somebody else and walk alongside of them too. Like I've had the unbelievable privilege to walk with Audrey and Abby and the rest of her family. The very last way to be involved through our foster love ministry is through something called Royal Family Kids Camp. And Royal Family Kids Camp is a 1-week sleepaway camp for kids who are in foster care. And we have 3 camps here in Utah. One is at a camp out in Tooele. One is up at Big Canyon in Park City, and then there's one in Ogden. And they're each a week, and they're all somewhere around June and July, and they desperately need volunteers that can come and spend a whole week there as a counselor, especially guys. They always are short guy counselors, and they have to turn away some of the boys to come to camp. Or you can come up and serve for one day. And it's a blast. And I tell people, especially if you come and spend the night, I just tell people it's like going on a mission trip in your own backyard. And it's just one of the most fun weeks that you'll ever have. So you can sign up for that. I'll be out at the table for any of these to talk about these things. Jenny will also be back there. She's gone to camp too. I've gone to camp, so we can talk to you a little bit more about any of these things. So I am going to go ahead now and hand it off to Bryson and Chloe, who are going to just share about some of our graduating seniors.
What's up, church? How are you guys? You're kind of quiet. How are you guys? Are y'all good? Good. All right, so I'm Chloe. This is Bryson. We are the student pastors here. We take care of your lovely children. And we are very excited to announce our seniors that are graduating this school year. They have worked really hard to get where they are and have awesome future plans for after graduation. So we just wanted to celebrate that with you guys because they're your family. And we're really proud of them. So without further ado, I want to introduce our first senior, which is Soraya Aston. Soraya is graduating from East Hollywood High, and after graduation, she will be working as a nanny with 3 kids, and then she's going to go to Dixie College to pursue a pediatric cancer nursing degree. So we're really proud of Soraya. Our next senior is Katie Comer. Katie's not able to be with us right now, but she is graduating from the Academy for Math, Engineering, and Science. After graduation, she will be working through the summer and then pursuing a degree in health and kinesiology at the University of Utah. Yeah, go Katie. Our next senior is Jovi Farrencrow. Jovi is graduating from the Academy for Math, Engineering, and Science. And after graduation, Jovi will be pursuing a degree in Family, Community, and Human Development with an emphasis on child life at the University of Utah. Our next senior is actually at work right now, but her name is Gabby Jacobs. Here's Gabby. Gabby works full-time at 3 different jobs, y'all. Like, that's impressive. And she will be continuing to pursue her career after high school. So really proud of Gabby. Our next senior is Caden Kliegman. And he is graduating from the Academy for Math, Engineering, and Science. And after graduation, Caden will be attending the AIT, an airborne school, over the summer. And then he will attend the University of Utah next spring. And then our last senior is Miss Lillian Stiggers. She is also graduating from the Academy for Math, Engineering, and Science. After graduation, Lillian plans to attend Salt Lake Community College to pursue a degree in fashion design. So Bryson and I are really proud of each of you and all the hard work that you guys have put in. And we can't wait to see what Jesus does in your future. So I just wanted to read this scripture over you because we have been teaching you guys to make disciples all year. And now it's time for you to do that on your own. So I just wanted to give the Great Commission to you one more time before you're an adult out there in the real world like these guys. So this is what Matthew 28:18-20 says. Then Jesus came to them and said, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. So church, we just wanted to commission these seniors. So if you guys would be willing, I would love for you to just pray with us and lift your hands, kind of as a symbolic putting your hands on their shoulders. And as we pray and commission them into the world. Here, I'm gonna actually touch you though. Sorry, my hands are cold. Jesus, I thank you for these girls and the other seniors that weren't able to make it today, and just all the hard work that they have put into making it to this moment. And I thank you for just the work that you have been doing in their lives and that we have seen just in our ministry that they are doing, each of them. And us as a church, we just want to ask you, Lord, that you would give them guidance as they go out into adult life, and that you would be with them every step of the way, like you just said in the scripture we read. And I just thank you for this awesome opportunity to be able to watch these students grow this year, and I can't wait to see what you do in them. I just pray that they would glorify you in every decision, in every moment from this moment on. And we just pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay. Like Chloe said, my name is Bryson, and they let me do student ministries here. How lucky am I? I don't know what they're thinking. Okay, guys, so if you didn't know, camp is coming up, all right? And it is an amazing time, all right? I don't know if any of you have ever went to a church camp, and if it was a bad experience, I'm sorry, because ours is awesome, all right? So, oftentimes in our kids' lives, they have a lot of stuff going on between doing their chores, probably not, right? Getting straight A's, just being great model kids, and oftentimes their little social media stuff they got going on, and they need a time, or sports, all these different things they have going on. Seriously, our kids are busy, and they need a time to go on a retreat and get away, right? So that's what camp is. God needs to take us out of the busyness of our lives and take us up to where we have no cell phone connection and be able to speak to us. And that's really kind of what God does at camp. He kind of gets us, our kids alone. He gets even us leaders alone, and we get to hear from him. So like I said, it's a great place for God to speak into their lives in powerful ways, whatever tough struggle they might be going into. Or oftentimes our students bring friends, and it might be the first time they ever get to hear about Jesus, right? It's a crazy experience. And some of you guys, I'm guessing that you had an experience where you went on a retreat of some sort or did something where God drew you out of that place that you were, and he was able to speak to you, right? And so that's kind of what the vision is behind our summer camp. Another thing that happens at camp is that we get to be in community with other churches in Utah Valley. And for our kids, that's really important to know that there's other kids that are actually Christians here in Utah County, not Utah County, but Salt Lake County, and just the valley in general, right? Because oftentimes you can feel like you're on a different planet, right? So there's a ton of kids that go up to this camp that are Christians, and you get to build amazing friendships, right? So, and the last thing is, as our youth group, we get to be in community with one another. We get to build friendships, and we get to be together. So, yeah, if you're feeling like, so there's a lot of things that can get in the way of that, like camp, like sports, vacations, and all these different things. Parents, I urge you guys, send your kids to camp because it's powerful. A lot of our leaders have experienced Jesus for the first time at these camps, right? It's important, right? Jesus and our kids' relationship with Jesus is super important, right? So try to prioritize that this summer, all right? And the last thing is if you don't have any kids and you want to be a part of financially sending our kids to camp, we have to pay for our leaders and a lot of different things, and it can be hard for us to be able to make that happen. And we want every single kid to be able to go to camp. So if you want to financially support a kid, there's also a way for you to do that too. And what you need to do is you need to go on to the K2 Giving app, and under Giving, go to Youth Stock Fundraiser and put in camp, and then give whatever you're feeling led to. And if you want to sign your kid up, underneath the events page, there's going to be a link on there where you can sign your kid up and make the payment. But like I said, if you want to send your kid and you don't have the funds to do that, please come talk to me or Chloe, probably Chloe. She's just better than me at most of that stuff, okay? Anyways, guys, we love you. Thank you so much for supporting our youth. This week, we're actually meeting at Pastor Dave's house, okay? So don't come here. 6 to 8, that's my little own plug, okay? Up next, we got Mike coming up to bring the word.
Well, hey everyone. It's kind of cool to follow the youth because the energy came up a little bit, but hopefully I can keep it there. Before I get going though, I just do want to make you aware that a couple weeks ago, we sent out email invitations to you guys to ask you to consider joining membership here at the church. We're reinstituting membership, and we sent out an email, we announced it, and we've gotten lots of responses, but we think there might still be some out there that haven't responded. So first, I want to remind you to look for that email. And if you haven't received the email or you missed the email and you'd like to get that email invite to join the membership here, Kip will be in the lobby after the service. You can just grab him. He'll make sure you get what you need so you can officially call K2 your home as a member. And it's important to do it quickly because over the next week, I think there's gonna be another email inviting you to vote on some bylaws and some things like that. So make sure you do that, okay? That's just a quick commercial. We are in the 4th week of a series we've called Beyond the Walls, where we're looking at this historic church that we find recorded in the book of Acts by the author Luke. And it's a very unique community that we haven't seen before or since. And we're looking at how this community was able to do some amazing things because they lived submitted to the Spirit of God. And so we're going to be exploring that today. I'm pretty excited to share with you. And this, truthfully, as I'm talking about this topic today, this probably isn't even one of my greatest strengths. So this was a challenging week as I prepared with this. But we're going to take a look at what we're calling, we've talked about the power of fellowship. We talked about the power of worship. We talked about the power of the word last week. And this week, we're talking about the power of compassion. And immediately I think to myself, it's an oxymoron. Power and compassion seem at odds with each other, not united with each other. But what we're going to find is as we look at this example through Scripture, we're going to see that compassion is a very powerful thing for us. And when you think about compassion, you can think about a lot of different ways. Like there's like organizational compassion, like Compassion International, that you can send a check in and they'll feed people. Or we have international missions here through the church. That organizationally, we do the clothing closet. You just heard about the foster care, and so there are tons of things that we do organizationally. There's also like group compassion. Maybe your small group signs up on a meal plan because someone's sick or they've just had a baby, and you help them through that time. Marge is sitting right here, and we just had a group that was able to go and help work on your bathroom, which was cool. So, and then there's like individual compassion. Maybe you mow the neighbor's lawn down the street, or maybe as you're getting off the highway and you see the person with the sign that says, "I need some help," and maybe you can give them money. There's never a shortage of ways to be involved in compassionate activities. And you can be involved 24/7 and at a varying level. But here's something that when I started studying this, I began to wonder, what the effects of being involved in compassion, not someone being compassionate to me, but me actually involving myself in outward compassion beyond these walls. And I was kind of fascinated what the science and what the research showed. First of all, I don't know if you know this, but compassion can reduce your risk of heart disease, because it boosts the positive effects of the vagus nerve, which helps slow down the beating of your heart. Secondly, compassionate people are more resilient to stress because being involved in compassion strengthens your immune response. The third one is that we're less vulnerable to the negative effects of loneliness. This was fascinating to me, and these are all from studies, by the way. Like, if there's this pandemic going on, right? Did you hear about it? It's called COVID. Well, there's another pandemic going on. It's called loneliness, and it is skyrocketing. And if you want to maybe figure out a step, maybe consider being involved in compassion. And this was really interesting from a study called The Science of Compassion. They found what they called compassionate societies, and they quantified these as societies that take care of their most vulnerable members and assist other nations in need. And this was an interesting kicker. Kids, you're not off the hook, because it involved children who performed more acts of kindness. And what they found with these communities was that they were the happiest communities in the world. And then finally, a Stanford study, just to make it all legit, Stanford, right? They found that when we focused on ourselves, we experienced less happiness. And when we gave of ourselves, we experienced greater happiness. So here's what I want to tell you to do. Be really selfish and think about others. It's the best thing for you. And I'm only kind of joking. But the thing that's interesting about this is that this idea, the medical science and the research, actually supports our design. We were created to be in communities. We were created to be serving in communities, and we were created to be looking outward, not inward. It speaks to our humanity. And I just want to, just a quick plug. If you're here today and you would find yourself saying something like, you know what, what you're talking about today, Mike, this is the very reason I walked away from faith. This right here. The people who were supposed to be the most compassionate in my life, when I needed compassion, or my mom or my family, we needed compassion. And when we needed it more, those people who were supposed to be compassionate were nowhere to be found. I mean, you know what I got from those people? I got judgment. If that's your story, I hope it's not, but if it's your story, I cannot tell you how heartbreaking that is to hear, but I want you to bear with me today, because I don't want you to make the mistake of walking away from your faith that calls us to be compassionate because someone doesn't really do a good job being compassionate. You see the incongruency there, don't you? So just bear with me today, because this speaks to our design and speaks to what God calls us to be and how he calls us to live with each other in this global community and even in our smaller communities. So here's what I want to do today. I want to take a look at this Acts 2 and Acts 4 church that was unprecedented. And I want to make some observations about the church. And then I want to help us understand, what do those observations mean to me and you today? That was a long time ago. But what does it mean to you and me today? And then, just to keep it interesting, when I'm done with that, I'm going to tell every single person here in this room today exactly what you have to do. Not even joking. But before you file out, saying I'm not really interested in what you have to say, before you file out, again, hang with me, because I think that what I will tell you may not be what you think. And I believe science bears it out. Listen, even if you don't believe in Jesus, compassion is the best thing you can do. This is my learning for the week. So that's what we're gonna do. But first, I wanna tell you a quick story about me and compassion. It's a little bit of a low-key version, but about a month ago, I was gonna go eat lunch with Tom Smith. Some of you guys know Tom and Jason Wilford. And so I'm driving there, and I swerve, and I hit a curb with my tire, and my tire immediately goes flat. But I have just enough time to get off because there's a gas station right there. So I get to the gas station, I pull over, get my spare tire out. It's gonna be a 5-minute fix, no big deal. And then I get the jack. It's called the jack. If you need your car fixed, don't call me, okay? Anyway, so I get the jack out and I start jacking it up, and then all of a sudden it starts to raise up, and it's really hard, and all of a sudden the thing goes, kunk. Yep, I'm not alone. Anyway, so I'm sitting there for a minute trying to figure out, what am I gonna do with this? And I pull it out, and the car slams back on the ground. I pull it out, and then I'm like, oh man, this jack is literally jacked. And so So I'm sitting there for a minute, scratching my head, and then I turn around. I'm like, you know what? Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go into the gas station and just see if they have a spare jack. I turn around, I take 2 steps, and there's this girl walking towards me. She's like 25, and she's looking at me like she's gonna talk to me, and I'm like, I don't know who this is. This is a little bit weird. And then she says, hey, do you need some help? Oh. Oh no, that's not even the good part. Anyway, so I say, you know what I need is I need a jack for my car. Do you have a spare jack? And she turns around, she walks in, she comes back out. She's got this whole toolbox. It's got tools and the jack and everything. And so she puts the jack under the car, and I say, well, thanks for letting me borrow it. She says, and I'm quoting, she says, I'll do it. I used to be a grease monkey. Knock yourself out. So she puts the jack on her, she cranks it up, but the wheel is still clearly on the ground, and then she starts loosening the lug nuts. And I'm like, oh, do you need me to jack that up more for you? And she's like, no. Not till you get the lug nuts loose, or else the wheel's gonna spin. I'm like, that's why that happens. So she does that, and I'm like, yeah, of course, yeah, I'm joking. And so she then, she fixes the tire, and then she tightening the lug nuts. We put everything away, and she steps onto the jack, the iron, tire iron, or whatever you call it. And she's like, she looks at me and she says, well, I weigh whatever, like 3 pounds more than air or something. And she says, I weigh this amount. I don't remember what it is, but so I won't be able to get any more pressure on your lug nuts than that. And I go, I can. And she goes, no. That's exactly how much pressure you want. If you over tighten them, you can ruin your lug nuts. I'm like, of course. Crazy. Anyway, so she fixes the tire, I put it away, I say thanks, she disappears. And this thought hit me immediately, that every single person that drove past me thought to themselves, I cannot believe that guy is making his daughter change his tire. But then I realized when I was studying for this, no. If the medical science and research supports that thinking of others is good for you, I was blessing this girl. That's the kind of leader you have. So you're welcome. Well, I know that's kind of a low-key story about compassion because I could have just called, like roadside assistance. But what happens when compassion gets amped up, like to 11? And that's what we're going to be looking at in this community. Now, if you remember in Acts, it's the book that follows immediately after the death of Jesus, right? He was crucified, he dies, he's buried, he raises from the dead. People are kind of trying to figure that out. And then he spends 40 days on earth visiting with the disciples and appearing to people. And then he does this weird thing. He tells them, hey, don't leave Jerusalem until the Holy Spirit comes. And he does this weird thing that I gotta believe the disciples are scratching their head going, I still don't understand him. He died and resurrected, I still don't know what he means. And they're like, because he says, John baptized with water, and you're gonna be baptized too with the Holy Spirit. It's gonna be like that. And I gotta believe they're going, what are we gonna be dunked in Holy Spirit juice? They're like, well, how does that work? But anyway, so they wait, and he tells them when the Spirit comes, by the way, here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna be filled with like superhero spirit power. You're gonna be able to do amazing, amazing, amazing things. Unbelievable stuff. And then as he's telling him, he literally floats into the sky and disappears. Probably they're thinking, maybe we'll be able to do that. I don't know. But then he disappears. And then just a little more than a week later, Pentecost comes. Now that's the day when they're sitting around and all of a sudden they hear these gale force winds. They have these like flames of fire that appear above their head. They start talking in languages they don't know. And this is such a deal that people come from around and they're all watching this thing. They're going, they're drunk. This is crazy. What's going on here? Hey, I understand that. He speaks my language. And to the point where 3,000 people in one day join the community of Christ follower. I mean, this is a big deal. And this is all because the craziness is going on because they are submitting themselves to living by the Spirit. And so we're going to pick up chapter 2 of Acts, And it says this, and all the believers met together in one place and shared everything, shared 10% of what they had. No, they shared everything they had. They sold property and possessions and shared the money with those in need. Now, this is like this event is like Woodstock minus the drugs and the alcohol. Only the people looking in are like, this is like Woodstock with the drugs and alcohol, the craziness that was going on. And then chapter 4, it continues. And it says, all the believers were united in heart and mind, and they felt that what they owned was not their own. So they shared everything they had. The apostles testified powerfully to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and God's great blessing was upon them all. There were no needy people. How many? None. Because those who owned land and houses would sell and bring the money to the apostles to give to those in need. For instance, and this is like a little weird thing, and I'm going to talk about this just for a second, and then he goes on this little diatribe. For instance, there was Joseph, the one the apostles nicknamed Barnabas, which means son of encouragement. He was from the tribe of Levi, and he came from the island of Cyprus. He sold the field that he owned, and he brought the money to the apostles. And sometimes when you're reading scripture, by the way, you might come across these moments where you're like, okay, cool story, I'm with you. Wait, why are you throwing in this obscure example? Right? You ever have that moment? You're like, I don't get where he's going with this. Well, again, you got to remember, when Luke is writing, he's not writing the Bible. He's writing an account to this guy Theophilus, who was a government official. And it's like this. It's like if he was having this in a conversation, he'd be saying this. Hey, Theophilus, you remember Joseph? No, not that one. The one that they called Barnabas, son of encouragement guy from Cyprus. Yeah, the Levite. Yeah. You know him? Yes. He's one that did this. Why don't you're a government official, walk down to the deeds office and you can fact check me. And the reason I tell you this is super, super important. It's not really the point of the message, but this is important. The reason I tell you this is because last week we talked about the power of the word of God. And today, more than ever, the authority of God's word is in question. And what I want to tell you is that if you're writing an account and you're trying to make something up to blow past people, you don't use these uniquely obscured, easily bogused out details. But when you're trying to prove that this is a true account, you include the details because the people who are reading it can trust the authority and the authenticity of it, right? So we can believe in the power of the word. Just a comfort, that's a side note. But let me ask you a question though. 3 questions I want to ask you as we get going here today. This community was united in heart and mind. Does that feel like today? No. What they owned, they didn't view as their own. They gave everything they had. There was no one in need. Raise your hand if you would say, I would like to live in a community like that. Let me see your hands. Community that has no need. Most of us here. Let me ask you another question. How many of you would like to live in a society where everyone was united in heart and mind? Let me see your hands. Okay, about the same. Let me ask you a third question. What would you be willing to do in order to make that a reality? Because it happened. It happened. And God's call is for us to live like that. So here are 4 observations that I think are going to be super valuable in us pursuing this kind of community where we're all about everyone and less about ourselves. The first is this. First observation is that there is no community without compassion. There is no community without compassion. You could say it this way too. No community, no compassion. No compassion, no community, right? This is Karen Armstrong. She's a founder of the global movement called the Charter for Compassion. She makes this statement, and this is just absolutely brilliant to me. She says, a compassionate city is an uncomfortable city. A city that is uncomfortable when anyone is homeless or hungry. Uncomfortable if every child isn't loved and given rich opportunities to grow and thrive. Uncomfortable when a community as a community, when we don't treat our neighbors as we wish to be treated. There's a story, this is from about 24 years ago, almost to the day, May 16th of 1998, the headline read, "Just outside hospital, teen lay bleeding to death." Christopher Searcy was his name. He was 15 years old at the time. And he was playing basketball with his friends, and a car drove by and sprayed gunshot into the people. And he got hit, and it hit his aorta. And his friends took him to this hospital, but they could only get him within 30 feet of the hospital. And they had to stop, so they laid him down, and they ran into the hospital to try and get the hospital people to come out and treat him. But the hospital policy would not allow these doctors to administer care outside the hospital. After a while, finally the police intervened. They took Chris and they took him in, and the doctors worked on them. By the way, I'm not trying to paint a bad picture of medical people. They're following policy. Anyway, the police take him in, the doctors work on him, but it was too late and he passed away. And I tell you this story for this reason. Because a community that is governed by bylaws and impersonal guidelines and rules and laws, which are good things, does not create unity. It creates division. If you don't follow my rules, you're not in my community. If you follow my rules, you're in my community. And if we're governed by those laws and bylaws that will not submit to compassion, instead of unity, disunity, therefore not community. So, a community without compassion is not a community at all. The second is this, though, this observation, that compassion begins in our hearts, but it ends in our hands. It begins in your hearts, but it ends in your hands. You know, and you've heard this saying, you know, I'm sure you've heard this saying, it's the thought that counts. Well, sort of. You know, I think if you were to think about that, that would be more like empathy. I can relate to what you're saying, or I hear that and it's tragic. Compassion is different. Compassion is like empathetic awareness of your needs, but I have to do something about it. I have to act. As a matter of fact, the definition when I looked it up was pretty interesting. The sympathetic awareness of others' distress coupled with a desire to alleviate suffering. It's empathy plus pro-social action to improve the condition of others. And up until now, I haven't really defined or gone into all this Greek and whatever, but I do want to just share one word with you. It's called spagnizomai. Spagnizomai. That's the Greek word, okay? Spagnizomai. Now, what it means is this: to be moved to one's bowels, hence to be moved with compassion or have compassion. Now, let me just explain something here. To be moved to one's bowels, in that time, they thought that the bowels, the deepest part of your body, were the seat of love and mercy. It's where your emotions lived in the deepest part. So if you come up to me afterwards, for instance, and you say, "Mike, great message. I moved my bowels listening to it," okay? I'm not gonna take that as a compliment. Today, that means something else. But in that time, what it meant was, I am so uncomfortable, I'm so unsettled by the internal emotion or the disconnect in the emotion that I've got going on, that I must act. That's what compassion is. I have to do something about this. Spagnizomai. And what's interesting is you look at Jesus' life and you see that during his time, this is so just all over the way he interacted with people. Look at when he was healing the multitudes, and in Matthew 9, and it says, "But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion," spagnizomai, "for them, and then he began healing every sickness." And then in Matthew 15, when he feeds the 5,000, you remember this? And he says he saw the multitudes and he was moved with compassion for them. And then he healed the sick, and then what did he do? He says, what are his disciples telling him? Send them away, it's too many. No, we gotta feed them. Their need is hunger, feed them. Same happens In Matthew 15, when he feeds 4,000, then he heals 2 blind men. It's interesting. He comes into the city, and the blind men are yelling, "Hey, heal us, heal us!" And the crowd is literally telling these 2 guys, "Shut up, shut up! You're outside group. You're not in the inside group. Be quiet." And Jesus, it says, was moved with compassion. And he had compassion on them and touched their eyes, and immediately their sight was healed. That's in Matthew 20, then in Mark 1, and this is maybe the most fascinating to me. When Jesus heals a leopard, he comes into town, not a leopard, a leper, sorry. I don't think leopards live in Jerusalem, so that much, at least. Anyway, he heals the leopard, and it says this in Mark 1. Then Jesus, moved with compassion, stretched out his hand and touched him. The leprosy left him, and he was cleansed. And here's something I want to point out. In this time again, leprosy was thought to be a highly transmittable disease by touch. I could touch you, and I would get leprosy. So they had whole colonies where people had to go live away from everyone else, where they couldn't spread the disease. And what did Jesus do to heal him? Here's a guy who is in the dregs of society. He has this horrible disease. He's probably never had human touch for years. And Jesus said, "I know your need is the leprosy thing, but you need to be touched as well." See, this shows that compassion in Jesus' mind is an action verb. It's not a thought or idea. It's not just empathy. It demonstrates the ways he interacted with them. And that's the third point, that compassion is the nature of God's relationship with us. Now, Jesus came to earth for the very purpose of restoring us back into right relationship and healing us and giving us the things we need. Even though we're told in Scripture on a couple occasions, even though he was fully God, he didn't come to be served, he came to be served. And to what extent? That he would give everything, including his life. And if I asked you to describe God's character, I think it'd be interesting to hear what you would have to say. I'm sure we'd hear have some great discussion about it. But I think it would be we'd hear different versions of what we think God's character would be. But the writers of the Bible, however, were consistent in the way they described God's character. They described it like this, Exodus 34:6, they say, he's compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness. And then we see in Psalm 116:5, the Lord is gracious and righteous, full of spagnizomai. We see in Psalm 103, the Lord is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love. I almost called this point, compassion is not earned, because it demonstrates how God's desire was, you don't have to earn it. This is a gift for you. But the point is this, that this is the very defining nature of the relationship we have with God. It's based in compassion. Which kind of leads me to another point, and that is that compassion is also what God asks of us in our relationships with each other. And this is the very reason that Acts community could flourish like it did, because they were so beyond these walls, focused on what other people needed rather than themselves, following the power of the Holy Spirit, doing incredibly difficult things, challenging things. Luke 6:36 kind of puts it point blank. It says this, you must be compassionate just as your Father is compassionate. There's no if, and, or but. James 2 says this, suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm and be fed, but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is that? And obviously that's a rhetorical question. And the answer is there's no good in that. There's much bad in that. That's the person who says, this is why I'm walking away from faith. Because when I needed it the most, no one was there for me. So I want to ask you 3 questions as we close out tonight. How many of you would like to live in a society where there was no need? How many of you would like to live in a society where we were united in mind and heart? And then what would you do in order to make that happen? And I'm going to invite the band up as we transition into some music here at the end. But you say, great, Mike, this is a gift I have. I can read your minds. It was a joke, apparently funnier to me than you. But anyway, here's my mind reading. You're saying, great, Mike. So what are you actually asking? Now, right? I said I was going to tell you with great certainty. And here's the sales pitch. Now, remember at the beginning, we had our foster care and foster love and care communities. Yeah, I'm not actually going to ask you to join that. It's none of my business, quite frankly. But here's what I am going to ask you. You know, there are tons of opportunities. You can be financially generous. Again, the foster care stuff or the care portal. You could join the rescue mission. Clothing closet we do once a month. Eswatini or Honduras, you could take a missions trip. You can support them over there. Maybe your small group can do something for other people. Maybe you could look for someone at your work that needs compassion. Maybe someone in your family that needs compassion. Someone on a street corner that needs compassion. Maybe someone here at K2 that needs compassion. Maybe at the checkout stand. Hey kids, maybe at your school. Sports team. Here's what I'm going to ask of you, and actually what I'm going to tell you. Every single one of us should be asking God to make us uncomfortable about the fact that we are not an Acts 2 community. That's the first thing. The second thing is this. Ask him to reveal to you the thing he wants you to be uncomfortable with. And listen, if you walk away today and you go, I'm not uncomfortable with any of it, that's your choice. That's up to you. Ask God to make you uncomfortable. Ask him to reveal the specific thing he wants you to be uncomfortable about, and then look for opportunities. Keep your head up and beyond the walls, not inward. You'll never find the compassion that God is calling you to be involved in as long as you're looking inward. So I'm going to pray for us, but before I do, I just want to share one closing story. I think it's a good example for us. There was a teacher, she was teaching six-year-olds math, and the topic was fractions. And in her class, she had a number of students who had recently arrived. They were refugees from another country, and she's teaching fractions, and she explains the difference between 1/2 and 1/4. And she asked the students all, would you rather have 1/2 of a chocolate bar, or would you rather have 1/4 of a chocolate bar? Well, most of her students answered correctly and said, I want 1/2. But many of her new refugee students answered 1/4. And she realized immediately she had to reteach because they didn't get the concept. And so she first began by asking a question. She said, so tell me, why would you want 1/4 instead of 1/2? And the answer floored her because their answer was this: because if I get 1/4, there's more for someone else. So that's how we should be pursuing what God has for us. And when he gives us stuff, it's to go outward. And we're going to pray now, and then we're going to transition. Close your eyes with me. You guys can stand too, if you would. Lord Jesus, we invite you into this moment, into our minds, into our hearts, into our emotions, into our motivations. Reveal to us the areas where we're looking so deeply into our own hearts that we can't even lift our heads up to see the need, and we're not uncomfortable. We're completely comfortable. Make us move from our comfort zone. Make us aware that you have more for us and you have more for everyone. Make us the Acts 2 community where no one has need and we're united in spirit. Thank you for your love, and thanks for the grace when we fail. Thanks for the second, third, fourth, and fifth chances. We love you so much, Jesus. We ask all this in your name. Amen.
You guys stand and worship with us? I see the King of Glory coming on the clouds with fire. The whole earth shakes, the whole earth shakes, yeah. I see his love and mercy washing over all our sin. The people sing, the people sing. Hosanna in the highest. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. Oh, for your mercy never failed me. In all my days, I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire, and in darkest night, you are close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend. Oh, I have lived in the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. 'Cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. 'Cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. 'Cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. 'Cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. 'Cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. 'Cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so stood before creation, eternity in your hands. You spoke the earth into motion, my soul now to stand. You stood before my fear, carried the cross on my shame. My sin weighed upon your shoulders, my soul now to stand. So what can I say? And what can I do? But offer this heart, oh God, completely to you. So I'll walk upon salvation, your spirit alive in me, this life to declare your promise, my soul now to stand. So what can I say? And what can I do? But offer this heart, oh God, completely to you. So what can I say? And what can I do? But offer this heart, oh God, completely to So I'll stand with arms high and heart abandoned in awe of the one who gave it all. So I'll stand, my soul up to you, surrender all. I am is yours. So I'll stand with arms high and heart abandoned in awe of the one who gave it all. So I'll stand, my soul up to you, surrender all. I am is yours. I'll stand with arms high and heart abandoned in awe of the one who gave it all. So I'll stand, my soul up to you, surrender all. I am is
Well, again, I just want to say thanks for being here today. And, you know, I just was struck as we were singing the song that said, I surrender everything. And for all of us, as we sing these lyrics, we need to really reconcile in our hearts and our heads, what are we really singing? And what are we really willing to offer to God? I hope this week is a blessed week as you go out and you see God working in new ways. And by the way, I was just a person in need of your compassion. My zipper was down in the middle of my message, and I know some of you were laughing at it. No one said anything. This is not a compassionate community. Worst fear ever. Anyway, thanks for being here. We just pray with me as we go for the day, for the week. Jesus, we've just finished hour 1. We have 167 more hours to do your work. I pray that as we leave, you would lead and guide us. Make us uncomfortable with the things you want us to be uncomfortable with. Help us hear and listen and look for your guidance and just make opportunities appear in front of us, Jesus. We're so thankful for your love and grace in our life. We ask all of this in your name. Don't forget to stop in the lobby. See you guys next week.